Hello, I'm looking at Majjhima Nikaya number 22, the Alagaddupama Sutta, translated as the simile of the snake. This is quite a long sutta and make quite a few points about the Buddhist doctrine. I actually looked at the Nanamoli Bodhi translation initially, and also looked at the Thanissaro translation and the Nyanaponika translation. And throughout it involves Buddha, and it starts off talking about a monk called Arita, who has a pernicious view. As he, Arita, understands the Dhamma as taught by Buddha, those items seem as obstructions to following the Dhamma are not really obstructions at all. So that's Arita's belief. It seems that Arita is refuting the idea that sensual pleasures, touch, hearing, seeing, and so on, result in suffering and despair and little gratification. The view of Arita is reported to Buddha, and Arita repeats his view to Buddha. Buddha calls Arita misguided, that sensual pleasures result in suffering, despair and little gratification, that Arita's wrong view will lead to Arita's long-term harm and suffering. Buddha then asked the assembled monks whether Arita has even kindled a spark of wisdom in the Dhamma and discipline. The monks replied that Arita has not kindled a single spark of wisdom in the Dhamma and discipline. Arita is dismayed at this. Buddha then reaffirms that the other monks understand the Dhamma and discipline and is as stated by the Buddha and as explained by way of similes. And there's then a list of the similes or tales that Buddha has used to exemplify the Dhamma. Buddha goes on to say, it is not good enough just to learn the Dhamma. The meanings of the teachings should be examined with wisdom. If the teachings are wrongly grasped, it can result in long-term harm and suffering. Just as if a poisonous snake is grasped or lifted by its coils or its tail, it will turn and bite and result in a death or deadly suffering. Why is that? Because the snake was grasped wrongly. So too, there can be wrong grasp of the teachings. So Buddha continues, don't just learn the Dhamma and teachings just to debate and win arguments. Examine the meaning and gain reflective acceptance. And then goes back to the snake analogy. Catch it with a cleft stick, grasp it behind the neck. So too with the Dhamma, grasp it correctly. And if you don't understand, ask. Buddha then goes on to the simile of the raft. How the Dhamma is similar to a raft, being for the purpose of crossing over, not for the purpose of grasping. Basically saying, to use and construct a raft to cross a river, but once crossed, there is no need to carry that raft any further, no matter how useful it was. That is, the Dhamma is for the purpose of crossing over, not for the purpose of grasping. The Dhamma, the Sutta, MN22, then continues with Buddha talking about the five aggregates, which is the material form, feelings, perception, mental formations and consciousness. And consciousness he describes as being what is seen, heard, sensed, cognised, encountered, sought and mentally pondered. And first of all he talks about the untaught person, who will say vis-a-vis the five aggregates, or the khandhas, this is mine, this I am, this is myself, and that I shall endure as long as eternity. Whereas the well-taught disciple or follower of the Dhamma believes that this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. So basically it's to do with this grasping and so forth of the noble truth. Also the belief that that which is the self is the cosmos. After death I shall be permanent, everlasting, eternal, not subject to change. I shall endure as long as eternity. Is the belief of the untaught person. And since he regards this way, he becomes agitated or concerned or worried. Whereas the taught person does not believe this. This is not mine, this is not me, this is not myself. And since he regards it this way, he does not become agitated about what does not exist. He then asks the question, can there be agitation about what is non-existent externally? Such as, yes, I had it, I no longer have it. May I have it, I did not get it. So there is agitation. Conversely, if someone doesn't think this way, there is no agitation. That is, the person does not think, I had it, now I don't have it. So it's the idea, I suppose, letting go, non-grasping, so on and so forth. And what about the case, can there be agitation, upset, about what is non-existent internally? Buddha says, yes. If someone has the view, that which is the self is the world, after death I shall be permanent, everlasting, and so on. But then, if the person hears the Dharma about relinquishing all attachment, the end of craving, dispassion about Nibbana, the person then thinks, I shall be annihilated, I shall perish, I shall be no more. So he sorrows, grieves and laments. This is how there is agitation about what is non-existent internally. Conversely, can there be no agitation, distress about what is non-existent internally? Yes, if someone does not have the view, that which is the self is the world, I shall endure as long as eternity. When he hears the Dhamma, he does not think, I shall be annihilated, etc., and does not become agitated. So I may have misread part of that from my notes. The person who hears the Dhamma is the one who does not become agitated, or follows the Dhamma, does not become agitated. It then goes on to talk about impermanence and not self. It says, monks, you may well acquire that possession which is permanent and everlasting. But have you? No, there is no such thing. You may cling to the doctrine of self that would not arouse sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair in one who clings to it. But do you see any such doctrine of self? No, the monks reply. Nor do I, says Buddha. You, bhikkhus, may well take as a support that view that would not arouse sorrow, lamentation, etc., in one who takes it as a support. But do you see any such support? No, reply the monks. Nor do I, says Buddha. So too, as a view of the self and what belongs to self are not apprehended as true, established, then having a view of the self being the world, permanent, after death, everlasting, eternal, and so on, is an utterly and completely foolish teaching. It would be good to cling to a doctrine of self, clinging to which no sorrow, no pain, no lamentation, no grief, no despair would arise. So there's that concession. But, Buddha goes on, do you see a clinging to a doctrine of self, clinging to which there would be not arise pain, etc.? And the answer is no. So basically, there's no such thing. If possessions were permanent, that would be brilliant, but this does not exist. If there was a doctrine of self that would not arouse sorrow, that would be brilliant too, but this does not exist. So I find it interesting making those two really profound points, that Buddha is aware that there could be a belief about permanent possessions and a belief about a doctrine of self. And obviously during the time I was thinking that if you thought those were true, that'd be the way to go, but they aren't true, so that's not a view really to follow. And he goes on to say, you may well take as a support a view that would not arouse sorrow, lamentation, pain and grief. But is there such a thing? And the monks reply, no. And Buddha then poses the question, where there is a self, would there be the thought belonging to myself? The monks reply, yes. Or where there is what belongs to self, would there be the thought myself? Again, reply is yes, from the monks. But as a self, or what belongs to self, are not understood as true or established, it's not a reality, then how can the view be taken, the cosmos is the self, after death I will be constant, permanent, eternal? Isn't this a foolish idea? Yes, comes the reply from the monks. So Buddha then goes on about permanent, impermanence. Is material form constant or inconstant? Is material form permanent or impermanent? And is that which is inconstant easeful or stressful? Stressful becomes a reply. Is that which is impermanent happiness or suffering? Suffering is the reply. And what is impermanent, suffering, subject to change? Is it fit to be considered thus? This is mine, this is myself. No, comes a reply. So this is this question and answer is repeated for the other aggregates, the feeling, perception, mental formations and consciousness. So asking the question, easeful or stressful, promote happiness or suffering? The monks respond as previously. Buddha then continues, again going through each of the five aggregates, starting with, so any form, that's material form, whether past, present, future, in oneself, external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, all material form should, with right wisdom, be seen as this is not mine, this is not myself, this is not what I am. This again repeats for feeling, perception, mental formations and consciousness. This is not mine, this is not myself, this is not what I am. And Buddha goes on, a well-taught follower, seeing this, becomes disenchanted with material form, feeling, perception, mental formations and consciousness. And being disenchanted, the well-taught follower becomes dispassionate. That is, his passion fades away. His passion having faded away, he is freed, liberated. Birth is ended, the holy life is fulfilled, the task is done, there is no more of this to be done. Thus he knows. And then it sort of all comes together. The person has got this far with the beliefs. The person has removed the crossbar, that is his abandoned ignorance, which is cut it off at the root and brought it to utter extinction. The person has filled the moat. The idea of rebirth, further becoming, is abandoned. He's broken the pillar, that is, abandoned craving, brought it to utter extinction, unbolted his mind, that is, abandoned the 5 lower fetters. And the 5 lower fetters are self-identity views, uncertainty, grasping at precepts and practices, sensual desire and ill will. Taken down the flag, or put down the burden, that is, abandoned the conceit of self and become unfettered. When the mind is thus freed, neither the gods with Indra, nor Brahma, nor the Lord of the creatures will find on what consciousness of one thus gone is based. Why? One who is thus gone is no longer traceable here and now, which I sort of interpret as being that one so liberated cannot be tempted by the teachings of other belief systems. So having understood and accepted the Dhamma, then a person doesn't follow or isn't tempted to follow other belief systems of the time. The Buddha then changes tack slightly, saying he's been falsely accused or misrepresented by some ascetics and Brahmins that he's a nihilist, teaches destruction and non-being. The Buddha rejects this. He says his teachings about suffering and the cessation of suffering. But if others revile, abuse, scold and insult the Buddha on this account, the Buddha will not feel annoyance, dejection or displeasure in his heart. Similarly, if others respect, revere, honour and venerate the Buddha on that account, he will not feel delight, joy nor elation in his heart. He will think it is towards this mind-body aggregate which was formed and fully understood that they perform such acts. So he isn't taking any praise as personal, it's just more a reverence towards the Dhamma. And he repeats this homily to his followers, saying that they should also have the same understanding if they are revered or abused. So therefore, he says, abandon the 5 aggregates, again, material form, feelings, perception, mental formations and consciousness. This will lead to long-term welfare and happiness. The simile given is Buddha asks as follows: what if people took away all the surrounding grass, sticks and branches and burnt them? Would you think people are carrying us off? People are burning us. No, come to reply. Why not, says Buddha? Because this is neither our self nor belongs to our self. So too, monks, whatever is not yours, abandon it. This will lead to long-term welfare and happiness. And what is not yours? Material form, feeling, perception, mental formations and consciousness. Abandon it. Material form is not you, feeling is not you, perception is not you, and so on. When you've abandoned it, that will lead to your welfare and happiness for a long time. So it concludes by saying, the Dhamma, as proclaimed, is clear, open, evident and free of complications. In this Dhamma, there is no future round of existence for those followers who are arahants with tates destroyed, who have lived the holy life, destroyed the fetters of being and are completely liberated through final knowledge. In this Dhamma, those followers who have abandoned the 5 lower fetters, that is the self-identity, uncertainty, grasping, sensual desire, ill will reappear in the pure abode and attain final nibbana without ever returning. In this Dhamma, those followers who have abandoned 3 fetters, self-view, doubt, adherence to rituals, and have put aside greed, hatred and delusion, they are all once returners, returning once to this world to make an end to suffering. In this Dhamma, Dhamma means sort of the belief system, the protocols. In this Dhamma, those followers who have abandoned the 3 fetters are all stream enterers, no longer subject to perdition, I think I've written, bound for deliverance and headed for enlightenment. In this Dhamma, those followers who are Dhamma followers or faith followers are all headed for enlightenment. In this Dhamma, those who have sufficient faith in the Buddha are all headed for heaven. So that's quite a long sutta. Covers quite a lot of interesting information with regards to the self. Thanks for watching.